Been a busy day of shows, and I'm really pleased to be joined right now by Field McConnell and David Hawkins of Abel Danger. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time out of your Sunday to speak with me.
Pleasure, Jonathan.
Yeah, my pleasure also.
Now, a lot of people saw this morning I put out a call from someone who had been in touch with me, making certain statements that I certainly did not put out to disparage anyone in any way, but the purpose of Crowdsource the Truth is to take opposing views and compare them. And sometimes, you know, we had an incident where John Cullen and Jake Morphonios were going to have a discussion, and Jake very quickly turned it into kind of a very unprofessional disaster. I certainly don't want to do that. I don't want to engage trolls, but there was one really interesting point of information that Kevin, who is in Warsaw, had brought up. Kevin had presented me with this video that George Webb had created, and that appears on YouTube on the Abel Danger channel. Now, just so everybody understands how this Abel Danger channel works, do you guys control uploads to this channel, or is it one of the members of the Abel Danger network that's doing that?
No, we don't. We don't control it. It's the members of the network that do.
Okay.
Well, which network are you talking about? YouTube?
The Abel Danger Worldwide Network.
Well, then I think that deserves a good answer. Craig Peterson in Phoenix and a man in Japan do the technical work and the uploads. But Abel Danger historically has just been David Hawkins and Field McConnell. But now it's getting to be such that we have contributors around the world, and we get more every day. So It's not we've been hijacked, but we, just like you, are interested in getting the truth out. And that's why I agree. You know, 2 hours ago, I was talking to my wife in England, and she said, I think you should stop doing any interviews with anybody other than David Hawkins. And I said, well, I couldn't agree more. But I said, I've already accepted a invitation from Jason for tonight. And I said, I've also accepted an invitation for Tuesday. But I would like to withdraw because I think that David and I have done everything that two humans could do. And I'd like to relax more. But, you know, a way that I could relax more and you guys could do more damage is if you, Jason Goodman, set up a regular, whether it's every week, every 2 weeks with David, and just the two of you get on, because 3 is a tougher number. But I'm truth motivated. David's truth motivated. We're completely different individuals, but we don't like sitting idly by watching the oppressed of the world be hurt more and the children of the world being victimized way beyond pedophilia. That's just the tip of the iceberg. The rest of it's even uglier. Jason, over to you.
Right. Well, and you know, Field, I think David and I are definitely developing a style of our own in terms of exploring and presenting information. The point I was getting at in asking about who handles the information on this particular YouTube channel is that I recognize that there are certain similarities between the Abel Danger Network and Crowdsource the Truth, in that you take in information from a wide range of sources, and what that does is it sort of opens the door to those that would seek to infiltrate our networks of trusted confidants, and also not to accuse anyone. It's just, you know, now we've got someone else doing this. Could this person have made an error? Maybe, I don't know. But what happened was this video got uploaded to an Abel Danger branded YouTube channel, which lends a certain credibility to it. And the video contains images from a Wikipedia page that says the Senior Executive Service was created in 1979 by Christine Marcy. Now, the problem that I pointed out to Warsaw Kevin in the video that he and I did earlier this morning was that Wikipedia is quite readily edited by anyone. And I edited it live on the call with Kevin, people who were watching that call came into the live chat and alerted me to the very realistic prospect that those edits would ultimately be removed from Wikipedia. But the point that I was trying to make is, if you want to change it for a sufficient duration of time to make a video and show someone, hey, look, here's this piece of information on Wikipedia, it must be true, that can obviously be easily done. Since making that video, someone has sent me this Wikipedia archive from the Wayback Machine, which, I mean, again, I don't know if this can or cannot be easily changed, but this does not say anything about Christine Marcy. And again, I don't think that means she did or did not have anything to do with the creation of SES. I'm just saying, when someone comes to me with evidence, the first thing I do is scrutinize the evidence, and if I find an immediate problem with it, I want to talk about it, because Kevin basically told me that you two gentlemen, two people who I've come to respect and trust very much, are lying to me, and that's quite an inflammatory claim for him to make. And there have been so many people who have tried to gain my trust only to mislead me, including George Webb, including Susan Holmes, Lutsky, Queen Tut, including Manuel Chavez. All of these people approached me as friends and then lied to me. So it's possible that Kevin is incorrect. It's possible that Kevin is being tricked. It's possible that a complicated range of misinformation came to him and led him to the wrong conclusion. But I don't want to make it a Abel Danger versus Warsaw Kevin. I want to help people become more discerning so they can look at things like this and make decisions for themselves as to whether they are correct or incorrect. And I also want you gentlemen to have an opportunity to defend your integrity and honor when it's challenged, if you would like to do that. I recognize the merit of ignoring detractors, but over to you guys.
Well, if I may, I'd like to respond in this way. I believe what Abel Danger can do for you and people like Jason and the general public is demonstrate the tools that the British intelligence have developed to manipulate perceptions on the internet. And it's really, I have to take my hat off to British intelligence, or even go back a little further. Well, no, British intelligence goes back a long, long way, but probably the greatest media for news, entertainment, and propaganda and the insertion of media plays is the BBC. They've been doing it, I think, since 1924 or whatever. And there's a whole range of technologies that they've developed, pioneered, and refined, which allows the BBC to inject news and media plays into events such as the Novichok or alleged Novichok poisoning in Salisbury in Wiltshire, and the attack in Syria, which they said it was a nerve gas, but without identifying the nerve gas. And the technology of manipulation of the internet, I can give name and the patent number and the name of the British company that is doing this as we speak. And they can produce 100 people like Kevin who can arbitrarily jump in and say something which is not true or something that is misleading, and the average person, including yourself, can't defend. You know, if you spend any significant time on defending the one, you're not available with the resources to defend yourself against the other. So they can surround you, whether you call them trolls or disinformation experts or whatever, doesn't really capture what the solution is, simply because they're so numerous. So right. I'll give you the name, the title, and the patent number of what is being used today. It's Kinetic, Q-I-N-E-T-I-Q, Kinetic, North America Incorporated, Social Engineering Protection Appliance, United States 912-302-7B2, United States 912-302-7B2. And this is comments in a recent post against that, where I've said, allegedly used by the United Kingdom's National Crime NCS and SES alumnus Robert Mueller as head of the Special Council of Investigation of Russian Interference in the 2016 United States election to capture Facebook oath-taking images. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that Facebook has been used without the knowledge and consent of the people who are the subjects of the Facebook attack. Facebook is being used to capture people in compromising positions, right? And that includes images of rituals or ceremonies. The most common experience I think Americans would have of this would be the hazing ceremonies associated with joining Greek life societies. Now, unfortunately, a number of these Greek life societies allow, if not actually encourage, extremely painful and humiliating ceremonies to bind people into the Greek life society on the basis they would, in some cases, rather die than reveal what they did to a fellow human being. A lot of it is pedophile related, a lot of it is homosexual related, a lot of it is deviant sex related, but be that as it may, when Americans wake up to the fact that an outfit called Cambridge Analytica, and I don't say they're taking my alma mater's name in vain, but it really pisses me off because I happen to go to Cambridge. I have great regard for the people there and the integrity, but there are unfortunately a number of people who go to Cambridge and they're prone or liable to be entrapped with these kind of rituals. And the famous 5 spies of World War II that continued after World War II, they were Cambridge alumni, right? And they betrayed the United Kingdom, and they betrayed a lot of very brave people, ostensibly to Russia, but unfortunately probably also to the Rothschild banking organization. So what I'm saying is, with an invention like that, they can trawl the internet, they can capture people by stealing Facebook profiles, and then blackmail them. And there's an unknown number, a very large number, Jason, of people out there who will malign you for peanuts. That is to say that they don't need to get paid. They just need to be told your job of the day is to undermine the integrity of Jason Goodman. And you have no defense against them on an individual basis, but I strongly recommend you help you to go behind the curtain and find the manipulator. Yes. And one of the manipulators that needs to be treated, I believe, as a racketeering, influence, and corrupt organization is Kinetic North America. And there you have the remedy, right? The remedy is RICO. These people are engaged in murder for hire, and they use people who have been blackmailed, extorted, or entrapped as the killers. And there's a whole host of them, probably running into the millions, not all available for murder for hire, which Field's sister Christine Marcy put together, that she's been transporting under Con Air since probably 1988, and Field can tell you why that's such an important date, but formally in 1994, when 2 years later, 1996, Christine Marcy was awarded the Gore Hammer Prize for reinventing government with the United States Justice Prisoner and Alien Transportation System that I repeat, she used on 9/11 in the 9/11 attack on America. Over to you.
Well, David, of course, we've spoken, you and I, about this social engineering protection appliance, and it's extremely interesting. It seems to match very closely to what is being done. And I must say that, I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt, think, hey, maybe it's possible that Kevin is just incorrect. I don't want to immediately jump to the conclusion that he is a social engineering, enemy who is putting forth this false information. But he was definitely adamant that you guys were lying to me, trying to put doubt into my mind, and attacking the whole, SES has been such a major topic. We've heard George Webb talking about it. We've heard Douglas Gabriel talking about it. Those are two people who I do not trust at all, based on the lies that I know for a fact they've told. And rather than addressing those lies, those two individuals continue to obfuscate, continue to lie, continue to accuse me of things. We've heard Douglas Gabriel outright accuse me of being a pedophile. We have heard George very indirectly, he speaks very positively in public on his YouTube channel to try to convince his audience that he's a nice guy. But meanwhile, he's soaked me for thousands of dollars, sent me many, many emails and text messages disparaging me. He quite clearly was in email and text communication with Robert David Steele, who I think is a key player in this whole disinformation campaign. And if Kinetic North America is part of it, that is one angle that I'm not fully aware of. And of course, you guys sharing your information with me and with the crowdsource community, it puts that information out there. David, you said something also very important, that I don't have the resources to defend against multiple attacks. And we've got Robert David Steele suing me for $15 million. He's just last week submitted a motion to amend his complaint, increasing the amount to $18 million. And they were able to do that on the basis of having served one of my co-defendants under the wrong name. Now, this is very strange because that co-defendant was given the code name Queen Tut. And as Field has shared, I am basically moving away from dealing with sources and individuals who are unable to tell me their real names. You guys are operating under your real names. I'm operating under my real name. There have been a lot of problems associated with these people that have alternate names. Field, you recently spoke about this. Anything you'd care to say about that?
Are we talking about the name issue right now?
Anything you'd like to discuss, sir?
Yeah, I want to make this brief because I want you and David to have most of the time. I don't respect people that don't honestly represent themselves as to who they are. And I want to tell you that it troubled me personally. Jason, this is going to sound like a criticism of you. Don't go there until I'm done. But I speak for a lot of people that watched the interaction between you and the guy from AIM, who, by the way, doesn't go by his real name. And we just, all of us collectively hate to see the infighting in people that are supposed to be involved in the truth. Now, rather than broaden the conversation, I think a solution, because I'm about solutions. In fact, long ago, I was a fighter pilot and I cheated. I mean, if somebody wanted me to go kill something, I'd go do it. But I wouldn't do it their way. I'd do it the right way. And that means when you got a shot, take it. And so I'm taking my shot now. I speak for a lot of people in the truth community that hated to see you and this other fellow argue. And here's the solution, though. I think you and David, after we get done today, you two, leave me out of it. You need to have a conversation and come up with a strategy involving Jason Goodman and David Hawkins of Abel Danger, because I'm trying to cut back, but I'm not going to cut back. Monday and Thursday, David can count on me as long as he wants to. In fact, David, as a throw a bone to you, when I was talking to Denise, my wife, about our upcoming trip back to Wales, which is the most peaceful place on earth I have been. It's pronounced Llangollen, Wales, North Wales. And I'm going back from the 14th to the 20th of May, and that includes a Monday and a Thursday. So I asked my wife, I said, I know you'd like to see me cut back, and she doesn't want me to cut back because she thinks I need it. She just thinks, like I do, that David and I have established a body of work that cannot ever be exceeded. It's never going to happen, Jason. What David and I have published is an incredible amount of work. But David's not done working. I'm not either. But I would like to limit my, like I honored when you called me today, Jason, you got to me before my wife said, please don't do too many more interviews with anybody. I said, well, okay, I won't. And I'm not mentioning who I'm doing it with Tuesday, but you both would recognize the name. And it's not AIM. But I get unjust criticisms just like you, Jason. Nobody says I'm a pedophile. There's somebody that hangs around your chat room, Jason, that has come up with some really odd things. Number one, that I was outside the bedroom door when John Benet Ramsey was murdered. Well, actually, I wasn't. The same person says that I was talking to George W. Bush when he gave the order to kill Colonel James Sabo. Well, she's got that wrong too, this disinformation person, because it was George H.W. Bush and Jeb Bush that ordered Colonel James Sabo to be murdered. And when I say that, I'm 100% sure I'm right, or I wouldn't say it. So what I'd like to offer to Jason and David is I'd like to bless if you guys work very closely with each other regularly. I think that would be good for both of you. I think it would be good for the truth movement. And I think it would be a giant up your rear end to these Johnny-come-latelys that are trying to divide the truth movement. And as far as David and I, you'll never divide us. It's not going to happen. It's been tried by some pretty good people. I mean, they're good at being dishonest. And I mentioned a lady named Karen, and I'm not saying the last name, but she ran a real strong campaign to divide David and I, and it didn't happen 7 years ago, and it's not going to happen tomorrow. As long as I'm involved in sharing the truth in the odd way that I do it, I'm not going to align myself with anybody but David. And when he's done with me, I'll breathe a sigh of relief. Because, no, David, it's not a criticism, but I'm tired. I think we've done everything to put basically the entire shadow government of the U.S. and the U.K. and throw in a small order of Israel. We've exposed all these people. Now, David does it a different way than I do. And David does it a lot better than I can. But I'm not competitive with David. I'm cooperative. And I want to cooperate with you, Jason, even though there's people like there would be in any organization. Abel Danger has 2 chat rooms. And we've got a lot of people that say, oh, I wouldn't talk to Jason. Well, guess what? Then you don't talk to Jason, but don't tell me who to talk to. My name's Field McConnell, and I'll talk to anybody I want to. And if I don't judge them to be worthy of my time, I won't talk to him anymore. That's pretty clear, Jason. And I'm talking to you. And I'm talking to you. So be encouraged. And David, you be encouraged too. I'm not bailing out. I'm just saying I think you guys might, because of your mannerisms, you guys might form a pretty deadly team also. And, you know, any organization can always use new blood.
And may I jump in here, Phil?
Please, David.
May I jump in?
Yes.
Because just occurs to me, thinking on the fly, and I think I've been ruminating it about, Phil, you and I have a way of communicating with each other, which is extraordinary. I mean, most people from the outside would think we're crazy, but maybe we are. That doesn't necessarily translate into a very effective way in communicating to a wider audience. Now, what I'm just inviting us to consider is, why don't we think about the Monday and Thursday show between Jason can act as the host, if you will. I'm not quite sure of the the structure as far as Abel Danger is concerned, but we put out an Abel Danger show where the host is Jason Goodman of Crowdsource the Truth.
Yeah, I think you'd call him a moderator or an MC, but Jason, that's a question for you to answer.
Yes, I'm certainly happy, and I enjoy collaborating with you guys, and I look forward to expanding our collaboration. I want to be clear, I'm not trying to make this into some sort of a challenge or anything. I see all the things that we've been talking about, David, in terms of this social engineering appliance, and Field, before this live stream we were talking, and you've been talking about the various disinformation that's coming at all of us. And, it came up today, and it was this strange thing where there was this video from George Webb. I'm very confident that George Webb has been doing a number of things to spread false information. I don't know why he's doing that, but I've seen it happen, and it's been used to harm me. So someone just sent me this page here from Wikipedia that does show us the history of edits of this document about SES. And I mean, again, people want me to vet every single thing that comes my way. The reason I created Crowdsource the Truth is because I cannot do that. One person cannot receive all of the emails and information and read it and process it and analyze it. But what I do is I bring together people like David Hawkins and Field McConnell and this person, Kevin, whether we like his information or dislike his information, and we compare ideas. Because no matter how smart someone is, no matter how truthful they're being, we are all susceptible to making mistakes. And so when we can check each other's work and work together, I find that to be an extremely effective way of finding out the truth. Now, there are edits that have been made to this SES page, and it looks like Christine Marcy was added September 12th, 2017, and removed on March 20th, 2018. It was added by an anonymous user and removed by a wiki editor with approximately 2,000 edits. I mean, again, just analyzing this information that this person is giving me about the edited information on Wikipedia is enough to make your head spin. But of course, I've got people sending me texts where, you know, Manuel Chavez is threatening Quinn Michaels in the live stream. I mean, there are people doing all kinds of things. And Field, you said something else that's very important and that comes up frequently. This idea that we all have to stick together. Now, I certainly don't want to foment division, but I also don't want someone inside the tent who has the idea that they're going to burn it down while we're all in there. So I think there is a great value in identifying liars and, well, let's not brand someone as a liar, but there's value in identifying inaccurate information, and I've seen an exorbitant amount of totally inaccurate information coming from my former associate, George Webb Swigert. So much so that I have to presume that some of it is at least some of it is intentional. And it's often directed towards me in as much as he's calling me out in his videos. In the same way that Manuel Chavez is making videos about me, Dave Acton, who is also Dave Swigert, is making videos about me. And I get it. People don't want me to feed the trolls. But we've got Robert David Steele with his lawsuit. It's filed in a federal court. If I ignore him, if I do nothing, he gets a default judgment, and that's clearly what he's trying to do. We now have Dave Swigert aggregating all this false information. He's had Dean Fougere, who is Titus Frost. He's had Manuel Chavez. He's had Nathan Stoltman. They're all filling the internet. Douglas Gabriel saying I'm a pedophile. These are points of data. People who don't know me, who hear these things, may believe them and may tell Field or David, don't talk to Jason. So it's important to me that we address these blatant lies head on and leave the door open to people who have additional information that can help us understand how these systems and mechanisms work. Because right away, just by stating that someone other than Field McConnell or David Hawkins is uploading videos to the Abel Danger YouTube channel, that may be more information than what viewers might have had earlier. Over to you guys.
Well, right now, and I Field's comments that he would be quite happy with more time for a dialogue between you and myself, Jason. I don't intend to spend any time on these kind of comments that are coming in from left field. For example, as far as Abel Danger is concerned, we don't own and control the content. We both write content into that website. Ultimately, the administrator of the website will put in material from one of our friends, who's Jessica, who's got I think she describes herself as one of the Dangerettes. I don't write that material, and I don't have any control over it appearing in Abel Danger. I know what I write, and I know what Fields writes, and we're pretty focused. Actually, it's very difficult to budge us from that focus. It may well be impossible. What I want to do is demonstrate to internet users that there are social engineering instruments or tools or devices that are operating on the internet that allow people like you to be slandered and libeled, and the slanderer and the libeler can get away with it because you don't have the resources to defend yourself. What I'm essentially saying is the internet now is a crime scene.
Yes.
Facebook is a crime scene, being used by criminal organizations like allegedly Kinetic. Now, I tell you what, it'd be very interesting if Kinetic sues you for libel, or sues me for libel, or Field McConnell's for libel, but I'm saying that the Kinetic organization and its directors and employee is a RICO, a racketeering, influenced and corrupt organization. Now, that's serious stuff.
Yes.
If they're not a RICO, or they believe that I'm talking frivolously, vexatiously, or maliciously, it's a publicly quoted company, and I'm saying that its directors represent a racketeering, influenced and corrupt organization that is making threats and lies over the internet. They should sue us.
Yes.
Sue me. I don't care. Bring on your best troops. I'll go to court and I'll give the reasons why I believe that. You know, truth is the best defense. If I have reason to believe, and generally do, and have good reason to believe, and do believe that that's a RICO, like Serco, they should sue us if they think that's a malicious position. Now, that is a powerful position for the people associated with Abel Danger. And I'm quite sure that my friends in Abel Danger, including Field, will be happy to publish on the internet that Abel Danger, collectively, you know, Field and I were the founders, and there are other people who are very closely involved. I think we would be very happy to go to court and make a statement that Kinetic and Serco are RICO operations as it's understood under the laws of the United States. Over to you.
Well, part of the problem, of course, is going to court takes time and money, and when they start stacking up these lawsuits, particularly when so many of them say, oh, go hire a lawyer. We've heard Dave Acton, who has become incredibly prolific since he learned that I went to the FBI and told them that I agree with you, David. I believe these guys are involved in a racketeering, influence, criminal organization, that they are monetizing. Well, on the internet, absolutely. That they are monetizing this defamation campaign by posting it onto Steemit, a blockchain-driven cryptocurrency social media network that I believe evidence has shown there is reason to suspect it may be both a financial scam and a propaganda machine that is being utilized in just the way you've described in that patent. Now, another area that I want to cover, and the whole reason why I put out Kevin's information, because we don't know right off the bat, or that's to say, I don't know right off the bat if it's information or disinformation, and this crowdsourced process is what I think is a very effective method for finding that. For example, a patent practitioner, someone who is an attorney who I have vetted by looking up on a patent database here. I can share it with you gentlemen, but I don't want to put it on the broadcast right now because I'm not sure that this person wants their personal information revealed on the internet, but I believe you can see this is the name. I'm looking right here on the USPTO office. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, so this is someone who contacted me, and I don't believe this person, maybe they could, but I think it's unlikely that they would have the ability to manipulate that USPTO website. But they were speaking specifically, David, about the patent you and I were examining, a patent that appears to be, it's a patent application that's associated with the Northwestern University that you and I had a really interesting conversation about the other day, David. And this person is saying Phi Beta Kappa is simply an academic honorship society. And again, I'm not bringing this up, David, to be contrary or to challenge you, but rather to offer a fair shake to people who have a different opinion and maybe different data that they've used to form that opinion, so that we can either strengthen your position or introduce new information that you might not be aware of that could lead to a new, stronger conclusion. So this person who's an attorney says Phi Beta Kappa is simply an academic honorship society, and this person became a member in college. You would expect people in high political positions who attended prestigious institutions to have been members of it. David Hawkins makes you think the society is nefarious by associating bad actors with it. In both of your conversations with him, David Hawkins also miscategorizes the patent system. How do you feel about this statement?
Well, Phi Beta Kappa, I mean, ostensibly it's an honor society, but honor society that were formed in 1776, contemporary actually with Kappa Beta Phi, that have 17 presidents and 38 Supreme Court judges and over 100 Nobel Prize winners, bears some kind of investigation, because the question to be asked is, do they have any initiation ceremonies that might involve these people getting humiliated and then swearing some kind of oath? I mean, it's very hard to prove a negative, of course. In fact, some people would say it's impossible.
Right.
However, almost all of these societies, Phi Beta Kappa, Kappa Beta Phi, and the other Greek life societies have initiation ceremonies, right, where people swear an oath of loyalty to the secret society or the honor society. Now, the problem with swearing an oath, and I believe Field will have been forced to have some kind of initiation ceremonies at the Naval War College. If people are recording that oath and they're being subsequently used to blackmail, then let's say the majority of members of the society may be completely unaware, but there may be a small group of people within that who have actually become victims of a blackmail and entrapment racket. And I believe that British intelligence is very good at that. Over to you.
Right. Okay, and then the second part of the question that this person raises has to do with this patent, David, that you and I were discussing, related to Northwestern University creating a detoxifying catalyst. And this relates to the Novichok gas and what we were talking about with the Syria attack just the other night. This patent attorney says this particular metal organic frameworks for the catalytic detoxification of chemical warfare and nerve agents is an unexamined, published patent application, not a patent. His application was withdrawn. So, I mean, again, I think this person is talking about the technical aspects of this patent, but certainly it still remains a piece of evidence that Northwestern University was at least experimenting with, thinking about, and applying for patents along this line. What do you think about what the patent attorney is saying?
Well, I think this attorney is being disingenuous, because the work on this detoxification process was funded by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and they presumably want some kind of return of information on what they're putting funds into. And Northwestern University gets the contract to develop the system, and in order to develop and test the system, you're going to need samples of the agents that are going to be detoxified, one of which is Novichok, right? So there has to be at Northwestern University, which was the home of one of the most dangerous women in the United States of America during the Students for a Democratic Society and the Weather Underground, Bernardine Dawn.
Yeah.
You've got a record of people at Northwestern University who are actively interested in the overthrow or the destruction of the United States. Putting that on one side, the fact remains is I found this by Googling Novichok and patents, right?
Yep.
And just as I've been looking at BZ, which is a hallucinogenic, incidentally. So there is a patent for this hallucinogenic drug that was developed for the army to try and neutralize enemy soldiers without actually killing them. And apparently the latest information is by a Swiss lab that the Skripals in Salisbury in Wiltshire were attacked with this hallucinogenic drug, which explains why they were comatose, but they didn't die. So now they're recovered. So all of this fuss in the United Kingdom about Novichok coming out of Russia, it's just as likely that the source of the Novichok rumor was Northwestern University.
Huh.
And unfortunately, they've got their wires crossed, because they used, it would appear, BZ or Bravo Zulu hallucinogenic, which didn't kill the Skripals. So all of this scandal or slander of the Russians is going to backfire, in my opinion. Now, this is of geostrategic importance, because, for example, Donald Trump, bless him, decided that it would be useful to throw 60 Russian diplomats out of their Seattle office on the grounds that Russia is suspected of using Novichok, when it would appear that Novichok was. So this idea that the patent office is an innocuous, legalistic, bureaucratic operation, I'll put it in my good old English, is bullshit, right? That's where you hide your devices, because you can actually have what are called submarine patents, which are not published but on the grounds of national security, but they bounce up later through corrupt patent attorneys, and the patent attorneys then claim on behalf of a client who didn't publish the thing that there's actually been a contravention of the patent. So the patent law and the patent office is deeply and profoundly corrupt. And one of the biggest problems with the United States is not even run by an American company. It's run by a British company, Serco. Right? And Serco is a RICO.
Yes. And you've demonstrated that many times. I recall you saying that this patent was funded, or this research was funded, by the Defense Threat, what is it called again?
The Defense Threat Reduction Agency. And let me just wing on from there, if I may. If you look at the welcome extended by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency to the senior executive service, it's obsequious. I think I taught Field that word the other day, but he claims he knew it before he talked to me. But anyway, I think there was another word you applied to Douglas that was sort of, didn't rhyme with obsequious, but had the same kind of meaning. He was over complimentary to Field, and I'm very suspicious of people who compliment Field too much. Right? Just teasing. Field. Is he still there, or has he gone quiet?
No, I was checking the weather, but I got to give you guys a bombshell. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Have either one of you heard in today's news that Najib Razak, or whoever, Najib Razak, the guy in Malaysia, he's basically dismantling the parliament or the Congress down there and calling for new elections. Have either one of you heard that?
No.
Well, it's in today's news. Now, are either one of you guys aware that about 6 weeks ago, Malaysia put out it was either $45 million or $145 million contract for a Texas corporation to go out and find Malaysia 370. And as soon as they did that, in fact, if I were prone to colorful speech, which I'm not, as David knows, I'm very measured and deliberate, right up until I knock the snot out of these fuckers. Malaysia.
Hey. This is Jason's show. You're not allowed to talk like that.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
I heard Jason talk like this once.
Yeah.
But anyway, what Malaysia's done, they've gone back to the well one too many times. And as soon as they hired the Texas contractor, who I think the name of the ship was Seabed Constructor, they hired these guys to go find Malaysia 370. I jumped all over them just like a seagull on a dead carp. I said, hey guys, we tried this back in June of 2014. Don't you remember? I'm doing this. I, as a private citizen, is telling Malaysia and Australia that you guys are collectively stupid. Because I told you, Malaysia and Australia, back in June, I think it was June 29th of 2014, I said, I know what you're going to do. You're going to go out and find some Boeing 777 parts, and you're going to dump them off a ship. And I even used the ship's name, the CSCL Uranus. Well, as soon as they trotted out this dog and pony show for about the third or fourth iteration, I smacked them with the truth. And now it looks, David, I'm not bragging, and I'm not saying Field instead of Abel Danger or Field instead of Field and David. These guys, I think the truth has destroyed this government of Malaysia. And I would invite the chat rooms, Jason's chat room, our Campfire chat room, our Discord chat room. I want our chat rooms to get real active and go up and start posting links of the announcement today that the Malaysian government is going to cease to exist, bow out, and call for new elections. Over to you, David or Jason.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Field. And so that's the Boeing story is another classical example where you can see the signature of patents being used outside the brief that is understood by the assignee, the inventor, or the patent. And just to go back into the patent office, what's happened is, Jason, is they're finding proxy patentees or proxy assignees or proxy inventors who will accept money, and I think this is blood money, in return for officially allowing the use of that patent for purposes for which it was not intended. And you and I have discussed the idea that a Bell and Howell tripod was used to smash the skull and create triangular dents in the skull of Valerie Percy, and the sharp, jagged teeth of where it goes into the ground to stab her deep into the belly and the breasts, right? So the poor girl is killed by a patented device where the Bell and Howell people didn't intend it to be used to murder anyone. It was intended to use for holding up a camera. But let me just come back to this Defense Threat Reduction Agency.
Exactly.
And the Northwestern University. So the Defense Threat Reduction Agency extends a contract and funding to Northwestern University, and I believe Northwestern University is corrupt. Any university that continues to employ a trained psychopathic killer like Bernardine Dawn is corrupt, period. Right?
Yes.
And I don't know, is it the University of Chicago or Illinois that employed Bill Ayers? Those are both psychopathic killers, right? So there's something deeply and profoundly wrong with the faculty and the administration in these universities, but I digress. So the Defense Threat Reduction Agency employs or provides funds to Northwestern University to develop a detoxification system.
How do we know that, David? Where did we find that
it's
connection?
Described in the patent. It's described in the patent.
It is.
Right? The program that resulted in this patent application was funded by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. It's right at the beginning, after the abstract of what this is about, right? So I think you see under related applications.
Defense Threat Reduction Agency. I do see that.
And there's a contract number.
Right? Yes, right? I see it.
Right? So there's no doubt about it. The government has certain rights in the invention. So what we're saying here, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency has rights in the invention, which is about detoxifying certain agents, including Novichok, which presumably means they've got to have stocks of Novichok at Northwestern University to demonstrate that this thing detoxifies them, right?
Yes.
So that there's at least two places in the world, the alleged place in Russia that produces stuff that Theresa May said was used on the Skirples in Salisbury in Wiltshire, and the Northwestern University chemistry lab, which must have some stocks of this shit, excuse the French, right?
Right.
Now, let's go to the Defense Threat Reduction Agency and what role it might have had in disposing of the stocks of Novichok-related gas. The Russians never called it Novichok, they called it Foliant. Right, in Syria and in Russia. So in Syria, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, which is completely impregnated might be a better word, by the Senior Executive Service, so much so that when a Senior Executive Service member arrives at the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, they actually are allowed to park their damn cars beside flag officers and generals. That is to say, these unelected, political, unhinged bureaucrats are given the same status as a serving military guy that's all the way up to general, which I don't know whether they're 3 stars or 4 stars or whatever. So they swan in with their, I don't know, Lamborghinis maybe confiscated by Christine Marcy under the Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture Fund. Right. Anyway, they swan into the car park at the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and they park beside a 3-star or 4-star general. Then they go into their office, and would you believe, Jason, they have their own SES gold fringe flag in their offices. I'm saying that's treason.
I remember you telling me this the other night, and I found it shocking, and it's all documented. So, again, David, I'm glad we're able to...
They're not hiding it. It's hidden in plain sight.
Right, and I'm glad we're able to go over this material again, because so much of it is so dense and complicated and new to people that sometimes reiterating it is very useful. It still doesn't explain to me why, and maybe it was just an accident. Maybe George made an honest mistake. He makes plenty of those, that he showed that video and then someone from the Abel Danger Network put it up on YouTube talking about Christine Marcy founding the SES. And, you know, people, Kevin was saying that he sees no evidence that Christine Marcy was much of anything. But of course, David, you pointed out to me this article from the Washington Post from 1979, which is, now there's this typo here calling her Christine Mary, but of course elsewhere they talk about her as Christine Marcy, and she's talking about being part of the Office of Management and Budget, super grade at the Office of Personnel Management. I mean, there is documentation for her involvement in these various areas of government. So I think for people like Kevin who are saying that you are just making this up, here's documentation that shows that you're not.
No, and you see, Kevin, I don't think, maybe I'm being a bit of an elitist, but then David Rockefeller said that the world is ready to move to a supranational government of world bankers and an intellectual elite. So I prefer to think of myself as intelligent. People are kind enough to say I'm intelligent. I dislike thinking of myself as an intellectual but if I wanted to carve out a human being who wouldn't have the faintest idea what I was talking about, or David Rockefeller was talking about, I think I'd pick that guy Kevin. You know, he's a round ball of lard. He waved some red book that he said, I worked with the army. Like I said, if I was his commanding officer, I'd have got rid of the guy just as quickly as possible, because I think he's a threat to himself and his fellow squatters.
He's got some health issues, I believe, related to Gulf War syndrome. And
yes, and I'm being very unkind, and I apologize in that regard.
That's okay. I understand.
But what I'm trying to say is, when he says that we're lying about Christine Marcy, if you had him read this, what you're showing right now a super grade in the Office of Personnel Management, well, that's a very powerful position, because I believe she was responsible for providing security clearances for top-level people in the American government, right? And in the Office of Personnel Management. Right. And then she has a conception process, which is mind-boggling. You and I have both pondered about that and feel we haven't come up with a very good explanation. When she conceives of a Mendenhall's baby in November of 1978, which pops into the world as Jessica Marcy, Field's niece, in August of 1979, which is about the time when the Senior Executive Service was launched.
Right.
Now, as you know, maybe you can use your words if you prefer. What is a Mendenhall's baby, Jason?
You had pointed out to me in the Urban Dictionary that a Mendenhall's baby involved essentially the rape of someone in public and the humiliation of having publicly raped the person, and basically that.
From behind.
From behind. That's significant.
Right.
Yes. And then rolling them over to see the humiliation in their eyes.
Right.
And so in November of 1978, I wanted to check if Nicholas Soames, the grandson of Winston Churchill, was in Washington at the time, and why he was, for example, the personal assistant to Senator Mark Hatfield, who would go on to become the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, to see if it was possible that Nicholas Soames had done the mounting of Field's sister, right? And someone in part of our team, and that's why I'm most comfortable with Abel Danger, because we have a research team that is busy looking out for the truth. Now, is it true? I don't know. But someone in our research team came up with a collage that shows Nicholas Soames, Jessica Marcy, the presumed Mendenhall's baby, and her mother, Christine Marcy, Field's sister, side by side. And for me, and I'm not a physiognomist or whatever it is, or a police DNA type individual, but for me, she's a dead ringer of Nicholas Soames, right? As a rather jowly female, and I think it's tragic if it does turn out that Jessica Marcy is the Mendenhall's baby described in that article. My sympathies with her and the betrayal she would probably feel about her mother are extensive. She's not responsible for how she comes into the world. Barack Obama is not responsible for when he was 7 years old that his mother, Ann Dunham, and the stepfather, Lolo Switoro, assigns a nanny to him who's a cross-dressing male prostitute called Turdy. But I believe Turdy could have been very useful for grooming Barack Obama as a pedophile entrapment expert, but I can't prove it. But maybe someone could explain why a mother would assign a cross-dressing male prostitute as a nanny to a 7-year-old boy. Over to you.
Before we address that, let me ask a couple questions of Field. Field, have you met Jessica Marcy, your niece?
Yes, I have, and I have nothing but kind things to say about her behavior, and any sins that others might attribute to Jessica should rightfully be placed on her mother, not Jessica herself. She's always been kind and respectful to me.
Is this a picture of her right here?
Yeah, that's her.
Okay. And so is she aware of this guy, Nicholas Soames?
I'm sure she is. I'm sure she is by now because, see, my sister, long ago, when I started writing the truly regrettable stuff I wrote for 14 books, my sister's beard, B-E-A-R-D, which is when you're a lesbian or a homosexual, we've learned from the Clintons and the Obamas that you have to appear to have a normal marriage so you can be politically acceptable to dumb voters. Well, my sister's husband, Eric, he loved reading what I was writing right up until the point when he said, "Hey, Chris, guess what? They just found out about you." And then suddenly my sister contacted me and said, "This guy, David Hawkins, have you ever met him?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, you shouldn't believe him." And I won't waste time on that. I told my sister to go take a flying leap. I said, "I hear nothing but BS out of you, Christine, and I hear nothing but the truth, however complex it is. David Hawkins has the truth and you don't, so don't bother me with your drivel." You know, my sister is, in my mind, and it's my belief, as David says, a belief is something that cannot be denied. You can't take away from me my belief. I believe my sister is the second most evil person in the United States of America, and I won't besmirch the old guy in the wheelchair whose wife has Graves' disease, very appropriate disease, by the way. Barbara Bush is ill, and she's going to decline medical remedies. But I think that's nothing different. An hour ago, I told you I got a phone call from a person who has a relationship with CSIS in Canada, and apparently a lot of CSIS employees are literally going underground. They are building underground shelters. Why? Well, because the 24,454 sealed indictments aren't going to remain sealed forever, and they extend around the world just like the British Empire used to. Well, the sun is setting on the British Empire. The sun is setting on Christine Marcy. The sun is setting on all these people working for the agencies that initially were unwitting participants in treasons, but they can no longer claim that. They are not unwitting because David and I, and you, also Jason and others, have exposed them for what they are. And my sister's in deep doo-doo. And you know what? That's fine with me. Over to you, Jason.
So, Field, another point...
Can I just jump in there and
yes,
continue?
Please, David.
So, go ahead. Well, I want to continue with this thread of the DTRA, the Defense Threat Reduction. So at their headquarters, now they allow senior executive service people to come in and treat them with the equivalent in civilian terms of the rank of people who are generals in the military. So they're very, very powerful people, all right? And they act as a kind of buffer between cabinet officers and military people. So to all intents and purposes, as far as I can see, the senior executive service controls the Defense Threat Reduction Agency and will have custody of elements that are subject to some kind of research program, such as the Northwestern detoxification. So I believe senior executive service would have people have access and custody of stocks of Novichok and other various gases, right? So now the senior executive service would have gone to the Mediterranean off the coast of Syria in a ship, and I think you Googled for that ship, and to supervise the destruction of 1,500 tons of Syria's chemical weapon stock. That's a lot. That's a lot of material, right? Very dangerous material. And what the senior executive service or the DTR did, we have destroyed all of Syria's declared weapons, chemical weapons, right?
Yes.
So where did the chemical weapons come allegedly used to for that attack on Duma, to which Trump and his friends have been decided it's in their best wisdom to shut down or bomb the weapons destruction, weapons development facilities in Syria? You know what, Jason? I don't think there are any chemical weapons production facilities in Syria. The chemical weapons construction and development and production facilities are in the United States or the United Kingdom. Right? Now, on that ship, right, there will have been senior executive service people flying or acknowledging or saluting or honoring a gold fringed flag that is not the flag of the United States of America.
Yes, you mentioned that. I was unable to observe that flag anywhere on the ship, however.
Yeah, well, of course you wouldn't. I mean, I think it would be in one of the controlling officers' cabins on that ship, inhabited by a senior executive service individual.
What ship are we talking about?
It's the MV Cape Ray, and I'm showing an image of it right now.
Okay.
And you can Google, Jason, the images of the processing plant on that ship for detoxifying or destroying those stocks of chemical weapons, right? So on that facility, there was a tailor-made capability of destroying Syria's declared chemical weapons under the supervision of members of the senior executive service flying or honoring a gold fringe flag. So I don't think all of those stocks were destroyed. I think some of them were destroyed, but I believe a significant element was retained for use in these false flags attacks in Syria. So it's totally obscene from a moral and integrity point of view. There's the weapon and there's the opportunity and the motive that tracks back to people like Bernardine Dawn, who would like to have 25 million Americans destroyed or killed in order to protect their revolution, right? You've got a clear thread of custody. This is the important thing. They don't own the chemical stocks. They have keys and to the custodians of the chemical stocks. So now you've got Serco, which is running the United States Patent and Trademark Office, with access to these devices, including the weapons, that can deploy them at short notice on an ad hoc media play attack, and then provoke a response from, dare I say it, easily led or easily fooled people like Donald Trump and his advisors. Now, my prayer, and I don't know that it's been answered yet, what is the role of James Mattis and the various generals, Marine Corps generals around Donald Trump, because they have access, there's the image of this stuff, they have access to an entity called the Marine Corps Intelligence Activity that I believe is potentially what should replace all of the United States foreign intelligence facilities. Apparently there are 18 intelligence agencies in the United States of America. Well, that's absurd. It's almost obscene. It's certainly stupid, because which of the intelligence agencies is Trump supposed to listen to? Over to you.
Right, and of course this is reiterating some of the things that we discussed the other day, but it's important because a lot of it, as we said, is complicated and people didn't necessarily get it the first time around. I did want to ask Field just a few more questions about Christine Marcy and some of the things that, of course, Kevin was saying. One thing that he had mentioned was that he felt it was unrealistic to assume that Christine Marcy could have written the, what is the act, the Civil something or other act that created the SES?
Yeah, it was an act in 1978, and of course she's not smart enough to do that, but she was asked by Jimmy Carter, who also isn't overly bright. Jimmy Carter, who I'm saying, in my view, is a traitor to America, hired my sister to do the dirty work, and she did it. And I think your gentleman, the Wabash Cannonball, or whoever he is, I think he said that it's impossible she could have done that at age 27. Well, that's a dumb statement because she wasn't 27 when she did it. She was 32.
That's what I wanted to ask. Right.
Yeah. Oh, well, good. I'm glad we cleared that up. The guy can't spell my sister's name. He doesn't know how old she was. And he's saying that David and I lie. Jason, I can promise you, if I ever knowingly lied to you, I will eliminate myself. And I'm not suicidal. I don't have time for lies. Lies are the most destructive things in the world. There's somebody in the Abel Danger chat room right now saying negative things about you, Jason. And I just told, yeah, I know, I don't give a shit either. But don't be coming into my chat room and telling me that the people that I value enough to share my time and my knowledge with, don't tell me you don't like them and you're not going to listen to them. I just told this person, I said, you can either say something nice or say nothing. And it included in that suggestion from me, this person has to know that I'm one of the admins that will gladly remove her. I came on an hour and a half ago and I said, I think we need less distractions and infighting among the truth community. And that applies to the chat room, which people think I own. And actually, I do. So if somebody wants to come on there and pick on everybody that I'll tell you what. The first guy I ever kicked out of the chat room told me that Jesus Christ wasn't real and there is no God. And that guy was gone immediately. Not because I'm a religious zealot. I'm not. I hate the word religion. Religion is bad, bad, bad. It's man-made. Spirituality is good, good, good. And you can attribute that to whoever you want to attribute it to. But I know that I serve the Creator, and I don't like dissension. And if there's going to be dissension, don't do it in the chat room I'm paying for. Go get your own chat room. See how that works out for you.
Well, just to elaborate on that a bit, Field, I certainly don't mind people who dislike what I say or even dislike me personally. That's everyone's, that's their right to do that. The thing that bothers me is when people decide something about me that's not based in fact and then spread that information around, or if they pass their moral judgment on me and then spread that around. I have not broken any laws that I am aware of. I certainly have not done that intentionally. In the case of this situation that George's brother is trying to construct against me, I have substantial evidence that multiple individuals who are, I believe, influenced by George's brother. What was that, Field?
I just got something that's going to cheer you up. And David's going to be smiling too. David knows who this came from, and I'm not going to say. Somebody just said in a YouTube comment they saw anagrams for Christine Marcy. Now, an anagram is taking the same letters in Christine Marcy and creating different words. Right. Here they are. Yeah, this is hilarious, and we need some levity and some joy. Christine Marcy remains tricky, and tricky Marines.
Wow.
Well, I mean, we have such a following. Abel Danger does. You do. George Webb probably has a following. I don't know. I don't care. But I chose today to share my time with Jason and David. That sharing my time is the greatest compliment I can give any human, because I don't know how much time I have, Jason. I'm 68 years old. I have all sorts of things that should have killed me. And yet here I am. And I'm still serving, but I'm serving the truth. And if people don't like the spiritual belief and truth that I possess. That's fine. They don't have to like me. They don't have to like David. They don't have to like Jason. But why would you listen to people if you know you're not going to like what they say? So all I'm trying to do is share the truth, period. If I died right now, those would be my final statements, and I'll gladly die before I'll change that dedication. Jason, over to you.
Right. Thank you,
Jason,
for that, Field. Yes, David.
Yes, Jason, I want to look at this woman, Christine Marcy, for the people who believe that she has very little power or never had any power.
Yes.
Now, I popped into the Skype the title of a paper that was written by the National Academy of Public Administration, the premier think tank for government activities in the United States in Washington. The National Academy of Public Administration. Christine Marcy was the president of it. Now, the National Academy of Public Administration writes position papers for Congress. In the aftermath of 9/11, the National Academy of Public Administration was asked to write a paper on the transformation of the FBI. One of the greatest frauds on America and the Republic was perpetrated through this paper that was written. The secretary for the writing of the paper was Christine Marcy. The title is Transforming the FBI, Integrating Management Functions under a Chief Management Officer. What you'll find, Jason, is that the Kinetic North America inserted, if that's the right word, this social engineering protection appliance into the FBI's communication system to monitor the truth and dub it, or decriminal or malicious. So when people like you contact the FBI and ask for a release or an investigation of someone on the bad side, they look at it, or they look at you specifically and say, hey, we got to marginalize this guy because he's approaching the truth. Sooner or later, I'm quite sure the FBI will take a look at Abel Danger. I think they have a great problem with Abel Danger because Field and I perhaps are the originator. We are worldwide, we are global, we describe ourselves as cloud-centric crime scene investigator, period. And a crime scene always has truth values attached to it, irrevocably attached to it. You cannot detach the truth from the crime scene, even if you remove evidence. Like outside the Pentagon, 10 minutes or 20 minutes after impact of whatever it was that hit before the lintel had collapsed, there was a line of people wearing FBI T-shirts picking up evidence from the Pentagon lawn. That, Jason, is a felony. It's known as spoliation of evidence because it makes it difficult for the public to determine. So the public is left with proving that something didn't hit the Pentagon, if you see my point. Now, the advice that came out in that Transforming the FBI, backed by the senior executive service through Christine Marcy and her Con Air thugs, right, frightened the hell out of a number of people, including one Robert Mueller, who was FBI director at the time. Right. And do you know what they did? They took 5,000 FBI agents away from law enforcement and crime scene investigation, and they put them onto repurpose the FBI to thwarting the next terrorist attacks. Well, they've done a great job, haven't they? Because now what they've got inside the FBI are people who create attacks, who mastermind attacks, and they present them as false flags with media plays, very sophisticated media plays around the world. So thousands of people have died as a result of Field McConnell's sister. Now, one might describe her as dumb as a bag of hammers, but she's not dumb. She may have got the Gore Hammer Award for the launch of Con Air, but she's not dumb. She's exceedingly intelligent, exceedingly ruthless, and I think she's a psychopath. Over to you.
Well, David, I'd like to point something out, because another thing that Kevin had mentioned was that he didn't see any evidence that this Christine Marcy was as powerful as we're describing. And I find this very interesting. So we're here looking at the National Academy of Public Administration webpage at the very article that you're describing. And at the bottom, they have this gallery of fellows. And as I understand it, fellows are sort of the key players involved in the founding of the organization. And there are only some of them depicted in photographs here, Christine Marcy being one of the group that is not shown in a photograph. And, you know, she's been a member since 1996. It's a little difficult to imagine that in 22 years you can't locate a photograph of one of your fellows. It describes her as the former president and chief executive officer of the National Academy of Public Administration. She's a consultant at McConnell International, chief operating officer, Small Business Administration, senior counsel, detention and deportation, immigration and naturalization service. Former positions with the U.S. Department of Justice include the Assistant Director of Prisoner Services with the U.S. Marshal Service, which I think aligns quite directly with the JPATS and the Con Air information that you've shared with me. It also says that she was the Associate Deputy Attorney General, the Office of the Deputy Attorney General, Acting Director, Deputy Director, Office of Construction Management, and Deputy Budget Director of the U.S. Department of the Interior, Deputy Assistant Secretary, the Office of Civil Rights, U.S. Department of Education, Assistant Director of Human Resources, Veterans and Labor Group, and the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. So it seems like quite a diverse career and a number of very highly placed positions. I don't know if Kevin missed this information, but this certainly seems like someone who's very powerful and maybe not that.
I'll tell you what's net there, if I may say so.
Yes.
That she was responsible for the introduction and operation with Eric Holder of the United States Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture Fund, which has had billions of dollars put into it. It allowed her to finance the leasing and construction and modification of the Con Air fleet. So those planes could fly through the decoy and drone maneuvers of 911, right? As aircraft that were actually, I think Field calls them on-scene commanders, right? Now, whether they're rented or bought for, this is one powerful cat, right? She also launched in 1984 with Eric Holder the database for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So she has access to the most vulnerable people in the United States that can be used and groomed for this white slave traffic or entrapment. She is one hell of a powerful individual and a very dangerous one. And by the grace of God, she, when I had my prior discussions, we were talking about a title for one of Field's books.
Yes.
And I said, you know, sooner or later, you're going to kill your sister. She's going to kill you. So if you wrote a book, Brother Abel, Sister Cain, right? How about Brother Cain and Sister Abel? And I asked Field what he wanted to do, and he said, well, he'd rather be Brother Cain, right? Over to you.
Right. Well, I mean, I think we've covered this very extensively. I'm with you that I don't think it's productive or it's just not going to get us anywhere to answer every single challenge. But, you know, Kevin is someone that I've spoken with before, and when I get contacted by people who are lawyers and things like that, the thing about that contact from Kevin was that it showed this video from George, and George has been very vocal about SES. George was going to communicate with Douglas Gabriel. Douglas Gabriel, I think, roped Field in a little bit because he knows Field has this open door policy of talking to everyone, and I'm not trying to discourage Field from doing whatever it is that Field wants to do, but I think we need to really examine this whole, oh, we have to stick together idea, because if we're just sticking together with anybody without understanding if they're truthful or specifically trying to mislead us, then we're potentially sticking together with a band of criminals and liars, which we obviously don't want.
I couldn't agree more, period.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you sharing your time with me on this Sunday evening. This was a bit of an impromptu conversation. I think you've shed a lot of light on these questions. And again, I think it's a reasonable thing for people to ask these types of questions. I think it's always good when the source of the information, David, in this case you, can reiterate to people where these conclusions were drawn from and show the articles and show the historic records of these agencies and things like that. We're really lucky to have Field to address some of the questions. I mean, I certainly do think a 32-year-old person, particularly someone as ambitious as Christine Marcy, who obviously made her way in several government organizations, I think she absolutely could have been doing these things, and I think she absolutely could have been suppressing information about herself from around the internet. And I think that the more I work with trusted, reliable resources like you gentlemen, and the more I bring out the story of people like Harmon Wilfred, and the more I work to assist Charles Ortel in revealing the crimes of the Clintons and their associates, that's what we're seeing with these attacks from different agents of disinformation, people who are trying to tell you guys that I've done crimes that I haven't done, who offer no evidence, people who are telling people to call my parents. I mean, how is that something helpful or useful? Call my parents and harass them? That's not something that people should do. But I think we should wrap it up here. If there's anything else that either of you two guys would like to share before we do that, please do.
Yes, if I may just say, the first three bosses of Christine Marcy when she went to work for the Office of Economic Opportunity, I think it was in 1968, very important and very germane, because she did something with or to those three individuals who would go on to play a critical role on the 9/11 attack. I think she got them trapped in some pedophile encounter and then has been blackmailing them. But let me tell you the three first bosses. There was Donald Rumsfeld.
Really?
Frank Carlucci.
Ooh, Carlyle Group.
And Dick Cheney.
Wow.
And if you look at the photos of the inside of the Presidential Emergency Operating Center on 9/11, one of her former bosses, Dick, was sandwiched between two women who were Phi Beta Kappa members, and that is Condoleezza Rice and Lynn Cheney, who I believe is a closet lesbian, and Condoleezza Rice might be as well. But you know what? That to me says it all. There was an attempted coup d'etat by world bankers and an intellectual elite, which would be Phi Beta Kappa, on 9/11, and they had marginalized or controlled Dick Cheney, perhaps through entrapment and blackmail. But that's very telling, because you got the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, who Field can tell you presumably is a capable fighter pilot because he was flying A-model aircraft. His commanding officer, when he was ultimately honorably discharged, said this is a very capable leader of men. George Bush is not a fool, but he wasn't on site or in position to prevent 9/11 turning from a simulated air hijacking exercise into a real attack. And the women who were in the Presidential Emergency Operating, at least one of them, Condoleezza Rice, told him to stay out. You were looking at, and we nearly experienced, and I think Field can explain why you dodged it, a successful coup d'etat, an attempted coup d'etat. Over to you.
Field, do you want to address that, or is that for another day?
No, I'll address it, but my sister suffers from fatal penis envy. She wants to be a guy, she wants to have balls, and she's a failure at both. And she is the second worst person that I know in the United States of America. And because I'm a gentleman and I'm wearing a white hat, I won't pick on a 96-year-old guy in a wheelchair whose wife is dying. But my sister needs to pay the price for treason. She's been knowingly and wittingly involved in treasons against the United States of America since no later than 1969. And I'm not just telling you this, Jason or David. I've told Donald Trump in writing, and the letter, anybody that wants to see my letter to Donald Trump can Google July 29th of 2015, letter, Trump, Dunford, Field McConnell, and Christine Marcy. I don't lie. I'm colorful. I may be eccentric. I may have ADHD, but I got some advice for my sister Condoleezza Rice and Lynn Cheney. You know, if you want to go around acting like men, then go ahead and put on some big boy pants and talk to a Marine fighter pilot and see how quick that conversation ends. My sister has tried to destroy my country, and just like Abel and Cain, one of us will die in this event. And I think you know me, Jason, well enough to know that I've got confidence in my Savior, and I'm not afraid to die, and I'm willing to stand up and expose anyone who's engaged in pedophilia and organ harvesting of little children. That doesn't float, and I disown my sister. She needs to be dealt with for treason, period. And thank you for sharing your time with us today, Jason. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Field. And one last question for both of you that came up in my conversation with Quinn Michaels last night. David, you told me in our previous conversation about, and I was unaware of this before, the Marine Corps intelligence activity. And you had mentioned that their communication system had been compromised somehow. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yes, they use the Navy Marine Corps intranet, which I believe is the largest intranet in the world. Intranet meaning focused on internal communications to the organization. And obviously the United States Navy and the Marine Corps have extensive obligations and requirements to communicate in real time, including battlefield information. There is absolutely no doubt they would have been relaying information related to that missile attack, some of it from French ships, some from British tornado bombers, I believe, on Syria the other day. Now, the problem is that that was privatized. It was outsourced to Hewlett-Packard.
Right.
And I believe, was it Carly, who was that woman who was a Republican candidate in the 2016 election?
Or something like that?
Fiorina.
Carly Fiorina. She was the president or CEO of Hewlett-Packard, and she ran the bloody thing into the ground, releasing thousands of capable engineers, physicists, and scientists. And this is part of this. In French, they call them les lesbiennes radicales, which is radical lesbians, right? And I'm not sexist. If you Google radical lesbianism or lesbian radical on your internet, you'll find a whole Wikipedia story about it. It originated as a movement in Quebec and France. So it's heavily francophone, if you will, French-speaking. And they believe in the overthrow by violence of a heteropatriarchal society, which is probably where you belong, right, Jason?
I guess.
And so on. It's got nothing to do with me being homophobic or whatever, but I strongly resent an organization that forms the DOJ Pride to represent the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered communities in the FBI, the United States Marshal Service, and there's been running since 1994, probably directed by Christine Marcy, because ultimately that is weaponizing their sexual orientation. And ultimately, thousands and thousands of heterosexual families and children have died as a result of these useless people, and they should be stripped out of justice. Justice is supposed to be blind. Over to you.
Indeed. Well, it's been quite a session, gentlemen. Again, thank you for your time. We're here at 90 minutes, and I think we should wrap it up. Field, if you are stuck on that decision to not do any more interviews at all, I'm pleased to have been part of the final farewell. I hope you'll reconsider. We still have Jimmy Files to talk to.
Okay, I'm reconsidering, but I hope you're respectful of my wife.
Of course.
She's just a wonderful person. I owe my life to my wife. I do want to focus on her, but just so you can enjoy, the Field and Denise adventure, we're going back to it's actually pronounced Llangollen, North Wales. I made a reservation about 8 hours ago, and we're gonna go spend 6 glorious nights there from the 14th to the 20th of May. So if it's okay with Denise, maybe on Monday or Thursday of that week, maybe you and David can be on the radio, and Denise and I will appear live from Wales to tell you how our retreat is going.
That would be great, and I am really enjoying the shows that David and I are doing together. His process is amazing, the searching for patents, and I agree with the way you addressed the concerns of that patent attorney. And again, I think there is a distinctive difference between malicious trolls who are just trying to cause problems and people who have real knowledge and experience in these areas, who can question the things that we say with honest intentions, and sometimes they're going to be correct, sometimes they're going to be incorrect, sometimes they're going to help expand the scope of what we're looking at. And I appreciate the way in which you answered those questions, David. I certainly expect we'll get a lot of emails and things about this show, so we'll be talking about these questions in the future. I want to wish you guys both a very pleasant evening, and I want to remind everyone that they can find more information about Abel Danger just by going to abeldanger.org, and that's the Abel Danger Global Cloud-Centric Crime-Solving Network. You can find articles, letters. You can support their work on patreon.com. And David is constantly updating General Kelly with his really amazing information that's derived from all kinds of different sources. I'm pleased to see that Abel Danger has stepped away from the Steemit network, which evidence so far has been indicating is both a potential financial scam and also a very controlled propaganda network. So I'm certainly open to someone polite and educated in the ways that that Steemit network operates to come forward and show me how the evidence I've seen so far could be wrong, but that hasn't happened. I've only been met with insults, so that sort of bolsters my opinion that it's kind of a disaster. I want to remind people who do enjoy Crowdsource the Truth that you can become a sponsor by going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I want to thank my guests, the distinguished leaders of the Abel Danger worldwide movement, Field McConnell and David Hawkins, two men that I consider trusted colleagues and friends. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great evening.
Thank you for your time, Jason.
And trust goes both ways. Thank you, Jason. Good night.
Good night, and thanks everybody for watching.